Hello and welcome back to the JW Thoughts channel. My name is Wally and today I got a rant to go on. See, I have been covering the 2025 Pure Worship Convention, and as I've been going through each and every talk of this convention, something just keeps popping up in my head and I don't know why. They've had a policy where they allow people to grow out their facial hair. The brothers to grow out their facial hair, and it's been 2 years now. I should have accepted it by now. Why is it still a talking point? Why is it something that I actively think about? And then I go in the comments to a video and I see people that maybe haven't checked in on what's going on with the goobers over at Watchtower HQ in a while, and they're completely shocked. They're like, wait, when did they allow beards? What in tarnation is going on around here? So I just thought I would rant about this real briefly, so let's do this. So before we kick things off here, let's jump in the old TARDIS and go back in time to the last time we saw Stephen Lett host a governing body update, and this was back in 2023 when we were treated with this cool little video that Watchtower put together about the history of them and facial hair, and then we got a big announcement.
For some years, based on the conclusions of certain archaeologists, our publications most often portrayed Jesus as clean-shaven. But in 1968, the Watchtower considered more reliable evidence from both historical sources and the scriptures. Since the scriptures neither command true worshipers to grow a beard nor command them to shave, this was a matter of personal decision. He said, "It had never occurred to me he was any different from thousands of other preachers. His soft, white flowing beard is the beard of a patriarch." Starting in the 1960s, in many lands, beards became associated with those who were rebelling against established authority. In recent times, the wearing of a beard has become common in many more lands. So, how should we view a brother who chooses to grow a beard today?
The governing body has concluded that there is a need to clarify this matter. The governing body does not have an issue with brothers wearing beards. Why not? Because the scriptures do not condemn the wearing of beards. Furthermore, as time has passed, we have noted that in many lands, it is acceptable for men who hold responsible positions in business and government to wear beards. Thus, whether a brother wears a beard is a personal decision. A brother's qualifications to serve as an elder or ministerial servant are based on his spirituality, not on whether he chooses to wear a beard.
Those pesky, worldly, misguided archaeologists, they had us all confused and thrown for a loop. I don't know why we listen to them. It is fascinating that when Watchtower gets something that is laughably wrong, when they get something just absurdly wrong, they don't have any accountability whatsoever. They just shift the blame over to, that was those worldly archaeologists. Well, in 1968, we fixed the problem. It took you till 1968 to work out that Jesus, if he was a real person walking around, which most likely was probably walking around with a grizzly man beard. It took you till 1968 to figure that one out, you bunch of hooligans. It's so absurd. But it is a good clue as to historically why they have this whole problem against men having facial hair in the first place. The fact that it took them till 1968 to even portray Jesus as having a beard in their own literature. But anyway, we're not going to get bogged down in the weeds of this thing. Stephen Lett, whenever they're making a change, whenever they are introducing this new policy that they want people to be excited about, so they got something wrong historically and it's like, boo, worldly archaeologists. But now that they're going to give someone something exciting, like, hey, growing facial hair, the governing body has decided. The governing body prayerfully concluded. So it took till 2023 for all of your prayers for wisdom, to finally get it through your thick skulls that ain't no big deal with someone having facial hair. Truly an astonishing moment in Watchtower history. But on to why I still have a problem with this. Why does it still irk me that every time I watch a convention video and some guy jump scares me and I see him with some facial hair, I just go, "Urgh." So first off, what makes me act like a scared animal in the corner showing my teeth and growling when I see someone pop up giving a Jehovah's Witness presentation and they have a beard? I think wow, completely just butchered that sentence. Have I ever been able to speak a word in my life? Holy moly, I don't even know what that was. It's what it represents. It represents a silent majority, I feel. I think when someone pops up and they're finally a grown adult and they are able to have facial hair for the first time, it just screams and shouts to me all of the times that I thought about growing facial hair, but not being able to do it. Going on vacation, letting that stubble go out a little bit and thinking, I think I actually look pretty dang good with a beard. Wish I could have one, but I best be shaving it before I go to a meeting. Someone that comes from work, they were working maybe some long hours for a few days, and they just are barely skating by trying to get to the meeting, and they didn't have time to shave. And the elders having to pull them into the back room and say, "Now, dear brother, we need to really address an issue. There might be some people in the congregation that are disturbed because you have a job and you work hard to provide for your family and you didn't have time to shave before you came to the Kingdom Hall." All of these different examples of Watchtower enforcing so stringently this stupid rule. I mean, what else do you call it? It was stupid. It's not biblical. Even Stephen Lett acknowledges, well, why are we having this change? Because it's not in the Bible. We just had the rule for the fun of it. And I think it represents this silent majority. They are powerless. They are voiceless. Even though I think at least half, if not more than half, of all Jehovah's Witness men wanted to know what it was like to have a beard. And just judging by that statistic alone, if half did or do, not all guys can wear a beard. Not all guys can pull it off. Sometimes they be Patchy the pirate out here, and it looks ridiculous. It looks very silly. So I just think that it really represents a silent majority. And so when I had this thought, I thought, okay, I'm going to go through every single convention speaker. So I decided to actually get the hard data during this convention. And what I found was that there were 89, the way I calculated it, maybe isn't the same way. I didn't really know what to do with their, every single video presentation. It got a little bit wonky, but how I calculated it, there was about roughly 89 Jehovah's Witness men that presented themselves on camera during this year's convention. At least it's different in every region, but this recording that I have. So there's 89, and of those, 42 were clean shaven, and 57 had beards or goatees, and only 4 guys had mustaches. I had no idea where to put them, so do whatever you want with that number. So what was it, 89, 42, 57, so it's 45%. 44 point, doesn't much matter. Yeah, we'll just use easy math. 45% were clean shaven, 55% were had a beard or a goatee. That represents that silent majority. And of those, I'm guessing that some of the ones that didn't have a beard during this convention probably tried, and they messed around and found out real quick that, sorry pal, it ain't for you. Whatever, Jesus didn't give you the expansion pack for your facial hair, so no beard for you there, bucko, but have fun with maybe a mustache. And just thinking about that, I think it is why it still bothers me. A couple of years after this, having had plenty of time to fully assimilate to this new version of Watchtower, I see it and it immediately reminds me of this fact within the organization that is larger than the facial hair. The fact that there can be a silent majority that is completely powerless. They have no voice, they have no choice. All they have to do is follow the rules. Sit around waiting, hoping, and praying. But their prayers don't matter. It's only the prayers of the governing body. And so how wild is that? That if there are a majority of Jehovah's Witness men that think this policy is stupid, that think that this is no basis in the Bible, that have to play dress up whenever they are pretending to be an ancient Hebrew person, and they have to put on a fake beard. They have to wear a beard and glue that bad boy on because they're not allowed to grow one in earnest. And just how sad that is and how transferable that fact is, because it's still, despite men being now allowed to grow facial hair, it's still a fact that if there is something else that they might want to do, they still have to wait for the governing body. The governing body still exercise the same amount of control. That hasn't changed. And it irritates me because in my mind, I know that the Jehovah's Witnesses are like, yeah, whoopee, yeah, we finally get to have our facial hair now, high-fiving each other down the streets, having contests, getting the old ruler out and seeing who's his biggest. And it distracts them from the fact that they are still, despite this little change, in that silent majority. Now, another reason for my mild irritation is that being a Jehovah's Witness for me was all about standing out, was not being part of Satan's system. It was all about being a weirdo. And we patted ourselves on the back for being strange little goobers out there, knocking on people's doors, telling them about this incoming Armageddon. And we genuinely felt that if we didn't act like those strange little Armageddon goobers, that we had blood on our hands. We took this crap really seriously. And when you see people kind of blending in, not really setting themselves apart from Satan's world, it irritates me because it's like, no. To be a real Jehovah's Witness means to have to really go out there and be completely different from anyone else. And I was thinking about the more larger worldwide historic context of how unique it was for Jehovah's Witnesses to have this policy. And I did a little bit of digging with regard to religions, and I'm telling you, there is not a lot of examples. There are individual congregations, individual areas within, of course, the Seventh-day Adventists, because their Jehovah's Witnesses are just a clone and a branch off from the Adventists, but we all know that. I talk about it all the time. So there are sects, but they never had like a worldwide enforced ban, sometimes with their elders or bishops or whatever the heck they call them. I'm pretty sure they just call them elders. They weren't allowed to, but that was kind of the major one that I could find. But other than that, and theirs wasn't even as bad as Jehovah's Witnesses, there was nothing. And I mean nothing. I couldn't find examples beyond isolated congregations in particular areas that maybe had rules surrounding it, but nothing for a large-ish organization that outlawed beards. And so that got me thinking farther. Okay, well, it's like what examples are there of large groups of people outlawing beards? I thought, okay, well, we have the USSR under Stalin. He was notoriously cranky about men, officials, people in the media, any politicians, anyone in the military about having a beard because of its funnily enough, religious connotations. Oh, you wouldn't want to be seen as a religious type of person. So that's a great example. Watchtower's in good company. So the USSR under Stalin. You had the communist China under Mao. He didn't want anyone looking back into the old ways. It was all about the future. In the future, you got to be clean shaven, looking like a seal out here. So he was notoriously against people having beards as well. So you got the Communist Party under Mao and USSR under Stalin. I suppose if you wanted to hit it with the Uno reverse card, you could throw in there the Islamic State and ISIS. Not entirely sure if I can say those words, but on YouTube, I think I can. I'll have to double check. If there was a random bleeping out of something, just know I was talking about radical versions of Islam. Anyway, but that would be like the reverse of that, where they require you to have a beard. And I know there are very secular Muslim groups that, in order to stand out and be apart from the more radical ones, they have, policies where you can't wear a beard. But anyway, all of this is to say that even looking at this from a larger, wider historical context, Watchtower is in hilarious company. Absolutely hilarious company. You have the USSR, communism, if you want to hit it with the Uno reverse, people that enforce rules surrounding ISIS and the Islamic State. And yeah, there you have it. Now, I know there are some military institutions, and that has more to do with discipline, and I think the fitting of certain types of gear. So, they don't want people to have long beards, having stuff get in the way. So there are, I think even in the US, there's a requirement. I'm not 100% sure, but I think in certain branches there is a requirement that you can't have a beard. So all of this is to say Watchtower was in absolutely hilarious company with the most controlling, militaristic, rule-setting, barbaric way of seeing the world of, you will follow every last little tiny detail or we will throw you out. That was their mentality. And so to see that they're not quite that way anymore, I guess that's another mild irritation that I have with this entire beard situation. Now, the last thing that I want to say about this will be the last video I ever make specifically about beards. I never want to talk about this ever again. But the last thing has to be how quickly the governing body makes me have to sneeze, first of all. Holy moly, I think I can keep it in though. And then after the sneeze subsides, I have to watch their stupid smug faces. And I just want to punch them. I'll be honest, I just want to punch their little smug, doughy faces. Seeing them with full knowledge that this was really just an unnecessary frustration and a burden that they were putting on people's lives. And as I've said in the past, some people do have medical conditions where they get, infections. We had someone in my congregation and he wasn't allowed to progress in the organization because he couldn't have a super clean shaven face without his skin really bad infections on his skin. And because of that, he wasn't allowed, and he was trying so hard. He was at the meetings, he's commenting, doing the service thing, everything. Nope, sorry, pal. You can't be a ministerial servant. And just watching that crush someone, it really crushed them. Having people that were, removed from positions, that were treated, ostracized from their community. If you walked into a Kingdom Hall 10 years ago and you grew out a beard on a vacation, your friends would stop talking to you until you shaved it, because it was a sign that you were rebelling against the governing body. You weren't following the rules. You were choosing to think for yourself and be different. You'd be ostracized from your entire community, even if you weren't disfellowshipped by the organization. They put the mechanisms in there to socially isolate people. And then, boom, they changed the policy, and on frame 7, governing bodies are just there smiling in your face. Ha ha, look at us. We even got a head start on you losers because we knew we were going to be changing the policy. Neener, neener, neener. I think the first one that we ever saw officially was Jeffrey Jackson. I think he had a goatee. And it felt like that was within 7 days of the policy change. It was so quick. And just seeing their happy, smiling faces, staring at an organization of people that they have just controlled and manipulated so harshly, just standing there, that can change a policy on a whim. They can just eat a burrito, it cleans out their colon, they feel a little bit better, and, maybe we'll finally get rid of the beard policy. It just irritates me to no end, just how freaking smug they are. Anyway, this is the last time I'm ever going to talk about beards again, like I said, but I just wanted to get it all out of my system. I think watching all of these convention videos and seeing just how ubiquitous the men were with their beards, it just made me want to rant about it. But this is the last time I'm ranting about it. With all that being said, stay safe, be kind, and don't forget to spend more time loving the things you love than hating the things you hate. And you better have a good ass day.